Welcome to Business Dig, where we focus on trends, tips, tools, and tales to educate, inform, and entertain. Today, we welcome Shane Barela, entrepreneur and co-owner of the Scented Leaf Tea House and Lounge. I'm Lisa Kanda, marketing strategist and founder of LK Advisors, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Deborah Fry, leadership development specialist with Fryworks and Associates.
Thank you, Lisa. It's always great to be here. I'm so glad to reconnect. We've had a few weeks off this summer, so we're back at it again. And Shane, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, we're excited to have you share some of your great insights. I think it's going to be really enjoyable for some of the business owners out there to learn how you've been able to pivot and survive these crazy times. Because as I mentioned, Deb and I have been digging to explore all kinds of tools that will help people during this challenging time. And today we're going to focus on helping business owners and entrepreneurs who may need some inspiration and ideas on resilience, perseverance, and creativity. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest, Shane Barela, co-owner of the Scented Tea House and Lounge with 2 storefronts in Tucson, Arizona, and an online store called the Scented Leaf World Tea House, serving a delicious variety of teas from all around the world. Shane and his wife, Adrienne, launched the Scented Leaf brand 10 years ago and have grown both their brick and mortar and online presence in spite of COVID-19. And in full disclosure, I have to tell you that Adrienne is my niece. And so Shane is my in-law, nephew-in-law, however that is. But being Adrienne's husband, or we call her Nin, that's the connection I have. But part of it was I noticed recently that they have just received the award for the 2nd year in a row as the best tea house in Tucson. And knowing what they've been going through in the past few months, I thought, what a great guest you would be, Shane, what you can share with our listeners and viewers on how you've made it this far. I think you have a great story to tell, and we're really excited to have you here. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So Shane, how did you get started selling tea and opening a tea house? Tell us your story here.
So it's kind of a crazy story. It all started, I ended up moving to Tucson when I was a younger person. I came over just to kind of visit my father for summertime. And I'm originally from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And, I was a typical kid where I played a lot outside and played a lot of sports. And then when I came over to Tucson, I stayed for the summer, and my father wanted me to stay for a little longer and actually go to school here in Tucson. And I wasn't really thrilled with that idea, but he wanted to have his son there with him. And I said, I haven't had a chance to live in a different place before, so I'll give it a shot. So I moved to Tucson on a temporary basis just to kind of check out the schools. And my first week of school, ironically, I make my first friend who invites me over to his house, and boom, within the first 30 seconds of me walking into his house, I get bit by his house family dog that is super nice, very gentle, a dog literally named Scout because he was always around the Cub Scouts. And it was one of those life-changing moments where it just moved me in a different direction. Long story short, the dog bite bit my lip, and I had to go to the hospital. I had to get kind of emergency plastic surgery. And then after that, I had some follow-up surgeries over the years. So what happened was when I went back into school, I was the new kid from a different city and state, and also the kid that just got bit by a dog with bandages on his face, with, all those things that are just not very good for a student or kid when you're brand new in school. I mean, I was in 5th grade and I was just that kid. And it really changed my personality in a sense where before I kind of had brothers in Santa Fe, everyone knew me. I was very involved in sports, and I was a little bit of a tough, rough kid. And when I ended up going to Tucson, getting bit by a dog, bandages, it was like a rebirth. I couldn't be that person anymore. I had to, in a sense, change my personality so that I was a little bit more, easy around the edges, a little more pleasant and not so tough as just a kid in general, because I was that person I needed to kind of bring myself back up to another level. And slowly but surely, I ended up doing just different ways of talking to people. And I felt like that time afterwards for the next probably 8 years, it just made me more vulnerable, which I think made me more acceptable to people. And I realized that, you know, being just gentle and nice to people and being able to not be such a tough person and just really letting your guard down allows you to kind of see a different side of people and more welcoming side. So as I grew into this, as I'm going through this, you know, during these teenage years, I start going, you know what, I really want to do my own thing. And I feel like in the future, I'm going to have my own business.
I'm really curious to know, you know, let's go ahead and fast forward to, all right, you've done so many different things that got you to this. So give us a little bit, because you are a lot like some of our listeners. I mean, your story of what I'm hearing so far is, you know, that even early on, a pivot of some sort that makes you look differently at yourself and how you relate to others. And that vulnerability that you just shared is really important for other folks to hear. So I'll let you go ahead and continue.
So basically, I just had this mindset of I wanted to have my own business one day. I didn't really want to work for a company. Going into my adulthood, I wanted to have my own business, but I had to go through college experience. I had to go through that time just so I have that actual, you know, degree in case, you know, I really need it down the road. But I always thought I'm never really going to work for a corporation. I really think I'm going to be able to do something. I used to sell candy. I used to sell fireworks. I used to sell different things when I was a kid because I would be able to kind of like get stuff from Santa Fe and then sell stuff. And it was probably not the most legal thing to do, but, you know, a little thing of black cats for $1 or $2. And when I'm 12 years old, allowed me to kind of think about what happens when you actually have a business. And then I did a lemonade thing. A lot of kids did. I did a lemonade stand. But when I got into college, it just really made me go, I really, really want to stay around people. And I really want to have the ability to have freedom with people and the flexibility and not be controlled so much with you know, a job that's 8 to 5. So after I graduated college, I immediately got into real estate and insurance. Ironically, I did the insurance thing just because it was kind of the time. Everyone was doing a lot of real estate sales. My friends were all real estate agents. It seemed like everyone was a real estate agent in the mid 2000s. And I was like, you know what, that's great, but it seems like people need an insurance agent to help out with this whole process because my brother was loans and my friends were real estate. Did that, wasn't the right fit for me. It was a year of my life. It was just a different speed than I was used to, much slower, dealing with more like the phone call thing and cold calling. And it just didn't feel right. I just didn't like the separation. So I got out of that after first year. And then I got into real estate more so. I did really well in real estate as a real estate agent. I was always kind of, you know, there for my customers as much as possible. And I felt like that was my main thing, was just the personal relationships I would build up and just the listening and making sure they got what they wanted and not being too good for anything. You know, like if I needed to do something for them, I was ready for that. And I wasn't trying to become someone who I wasn't. As I grew bigger and stronger with my skills in real estate, I realized I didn't want to do that also. I felt like this was a great thing for me, but it was almost like it wasn't right. My calling wasn't there. And I said, I need to do something else. Like I said, a business that's just me. And I wanted to fall back on that. I already had real estate properties that I would rent out. I had like 4 or 5 that I was actually renting out long-term leases. And I was like, you know what, this is great and easy and fun for me, but I need to be challenged a little more. I need to see what I'm made of. And this is going to be the time to do it. So I started asking around people, hey, do you know of any ideas, business ideas? And I came across the idea of selling food at outside of sporting events, like outside of baseball games. And I was going to do gelato because when I went to Europe when I was 20 years old, I went backpacking by myself and I came across a lot of gelato places. And in the United States, you don't really see that. It's always kind of ice cream. And the flavor options were just incredible. So I said, this is a great opportunity to bring this. So I said, let's do this. And I started talking to some friends about it. And they all kind of said, I think you're going to have a lot of problems getting into those places. They're not going to just easily let you sell that. And I said, you're right. And I called up one friend and I asked the same questions. And he says, well, I'm at the swap meet here in Tucson. He was a guy I just met. He was someone I bought a truck from. And I asked him, you know, this, and he's like, well, I'm at the swap meet and I sell dash covers, seat covers. And I was like, wow, that's different. And I guess that's definitely a swap meet thing. And he's like, yeah, but don't think it's like just this. He's like, there's so many people out here selling everything from food to boots to clothes to you name it. And he's like, there's a guy across the street who actually wants to sell his perfume business. And I said, well, I'm not really into perfume. I mean, I personally don't even wear cologne. And he's like, well, it's not really about that. You should take a look because this guy's pretty busy. He always has customers going in and out. So I said, all right, I'll take a look. So I go over there and I spy on the place to see what kind of business this guy has. And I'm in the corner just kind of like watching as a person walking by, and I'm looking and I'm counting and I'm checking to see how many people he's getting per hour. And I actually see this place is doing really well. And I go to him afterwards and I said, hey, my name is Shane and I'm really interested. I heard you want to sell your business. I'm interested in buying it. I need a month's worth of your numbers to kind of see what it's all about, and maybe I'll buy it. Month later, I look at his numbers and I was pretty happy with it. And my, my wife and girlfriend, Adrienne, she really loved perfume. So I said, could you help me out? Kind of just like give me some information about perfume and maybe sell it with me. She's like, yeah, that sounds fun. So she, I was surprised she was okay with this, but she said, yeah, I'll hang out at the swap meet. And I was like, well, I don't even want to hang out at the swap meet myself. Like, I personally don't even want to be there, but it's different in my mind when I know I'm going to be in a business. So I said yes, and I bought a building. It was not your typical setup where people have to do it every weekend. It was a full building with tile floor. It was like the size of a 2-car garage. It even had a garage that was automatic, so I could easily open and close. It had lighting. It had air conditioning for the most part. I was out there.
You were really high tech in swap meet world.
Oh my gosh, you'd be blown away what we had to go through when it was busy. Everyone was using the same pole for electricity. So there was like this one pole per section, and it was a bunch of outlets, and people are just multi-adapting it just left and right, just on top of each other. And it was so crazy that when it was a nice weather day, people would be out there selling, and they wanted to have their stuff to show off. So they're plugging in their things and they're showing customers, hey, it works. And I'm in there running a swamp cooler at times, an air conditioner at times, heater at times, and it would always go out because they didn't update the electricity. So it was like on a maximum 15 amps, which is pretty low. So everyone would just trip. So middle of the night, you're hanging out, working, you have customers, you have a full house of people looking at your product, and all of a sudden all the power goes out. And then you're like, 1 second, you go out there in the pitch black, and you go out there and you go back to the breaker and you're trying to go up and down with it. You're doing all sorts of stuff. You're telling that person, hey, you can't plug this in. And everyone's like around this pole. And eventually you get it back on for another 10 minutes.
This is so entrepreneur life, though. Think about this. I mean, you have to do it all, right? You wear every hat and the power. I mean, this is amazing stuff. So what I want to do is, if you could tell us how do you get from perfume to tea?
Yeah, so that whole process lasted 5 years. I was just back and forth every weekend selling perfume, and I was doing pretty good numbers. I would say that we had the most customers in any business in that area besides food. I mean, we had our regulars, we had our people, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to always do this here. I need something else. So I said, I need to have a brick and mortar that's separate from the swap meet. So I looked around and I found a store in Phoenix that basically is like a Hispanic-based. I don't know if you guys have them where you're at, but we have a place here in Tucson called Food City, and then up in Phoenix, it's called the Ranchera Market or something like that. And it's basically has a lot of Hispanic foods, and it's just a Hispanic demographic. And that's who bought the most perfume from us, was Hispanics. And I was like, I need to go somewhere else and find another place. So I ended up, for summertime, we go to Phoenix and open up another location. So now I have my wife and friends and employees running the Tucson swap meet. I'm in Phoenix for, I think, 4 months, selling over there in this little corner of a grocery store that no one even noticed, but they talked up the place, and I said, okay, it was a mistake, but it was one of those learning mistakes. I said, all right, I need to get out of here. I left that spot and I said, I need some better exposure. So I ended up going to University Boulevard, walking around by the University of Arizona, and I saw the space that was vacant and it was for rent. And I said, oh my God, look at that. That'd be amazing. Like, such a good location. So I called up the landlord and I said, hey, I'm interested. I told my business that I sell perfume at the swap meet. You can imagine when someone says, I have a business at Swami. They're not thrilled to go, hey, now you're ready for the big leagues. So she was like, okay, well, maybe, why don't we take a look at another space? She showed me another spot that was down the street a little bit, and it was tiny. It was 10 feet wide by 30 feet. And it was a space that basically never makes it, ever, ever. She's like, you can take this spot if you want. And I said, you know what? It's on the streets, on the boulevard. I'll take it. Well, that was one of those turning moments because I ended up now got in University Boulevard and people got to kind of see me on a regular basis. Customers got to know me. I had a perfume store there and a perfume store at the Swami. So we were working 7 days a week. So I never had a day off. I just would go from one place to another. And my baby during this time was born, my baby boy, and just tough, crazy, constantly working. And that perfume thing, it just didn't really fit with the people at the university. Everyone who was there, we found out the hard way that everyone basically gets their perfume and cologne from mom and dad during the holidays. And the Hispanic community buys it on a regular basis as a gift throughout the year. And when you go outside that kind of culture and you have different cultures, it goes into more of a gift thing. I only get it as a gift. So we just didn't sell enough. We had, gosh, I think our sales were, we would sell 1 to 5 bottles a day. So you can imagine $30 to $200 in sales a day, which if you go $50, you multiply that by 30 days, that's $1,500. I mean, my rent was over that. So we just were never really making it. And I said, I need to do something different. So I just started thinking about other ideas because I was kind of going down.
I'm going to kind of jump in there real quick because I always like to relate the story to some of our listeners who, what I'm hearing, and Deb, jump in here because Shane, it's really incredible because you're an entrepreneur at heart. Absolutely. Everything you do. And I think how you set up, just learning really early on when you moved to Tucson, you are a born entrepreneur, and so many folks who have a lot of the ambition you have, but you take such great risks. I mean, but you learn. I'm here, intertwined in this story. You're just dropping gems of knowledge to folks that, so I just kind of want to slow it down because I don't know if you realize that for people listening and watching us, pay attention because Shane's just really sharing some incredible deep knowledge and resilience and chutzpah. I'm gonna go with that because you're recognizing all these things, but you didn't stop. You've taken risks. They said you went to Phoenix, you learned, you knew your market. So folks out there, I mean, you had a market specifically for the perfume business. Now, as we're at this conversation, you're saying, okay, that market's not here. They're not going to help us survive. So I wanted to hesitate just to let folks catch up with you because I'm catching my breath because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're another thing. And just amazing. So, all right, go to where you are now because I have been to your location on University Boulevard.
In terms of that pivoting, the Swami had its time during a political season where people were changing laws. And when there was a law here in Arizona that basically made it so that people had to get their identification checked to see if they were legal citizens, if just based on their appearance. That SB 1070 law changed the entire business for me because people were not coming as much as they were to the Swami because people were boycotting Tucson. So when people started boycotting Tucson, they were definitely my people because they were coming from Mexico, buying wholesale from me, selling it back in Mexico, or they were coming up from Mexico, buying and just enjoying it. And when those people stopped coming because of political reasons, man, I had this pivot that I had to make really fast because everyone was going down to the Swami and everyone was complaining every weekend about, oh my gosh, it's getting worse and worse every weekend. And this conversation was going on for 6 months to a year. And we just started getting to the point where I saw people left and right leave and just go out of business. And it was sad. And that's kind of where I was like, I'm going to be in a situation here if I don't make a move. I when you said that, Lisa, I think one of those things that I felt like it was different for me than other people is a lot of times people like to hear advice from, no offense to parents, I'm a parent, but when you talk to your parents who are designed to keep you safe and secure, that is their job. They always want you to take the safer path. And my whole upbringing, I learned at a young age that my parents were not going to make me excel in this world of entrepreneurship. They were not going to make me the next big thing because every single thing I had to like bring up as an idea, they were like, oh, I don't know about that. Oh, you're gonna be the Swami? I mean, every single person thought I was crazy for being the Swami. And I just never once thought I was crazy at the Swami. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm gonna be able to make cash, on a regular basis here, and then I can have another job doing something else. Like, what do you mean? But to me, it didn't seem like that. But everyone around me, it was bizarre. And the perfume thing, and what I did, the previous things in my life, and then when I got into the tea business, when I opened up in Phoenix, when I opened up more locations in Tucson, every step of the way, I had people above me who I always said, I got to look up to these people and listen to what they have to say. But I realized it's just, you got to take it as a grain of salt. You got to take in what they're getting at and what they mean by what they're saying, but to know that your path is your path and you have to take the risk, because at the end of the day, you live with yourself and you have to deal with what you got for yourself. You make your bed. And I just learned at a young age to not listen to people, really. And anyone I was going to listen to were going to be people who I saw who were actually doing it, being risky, out there working hard, out there doing hard stuff that makes it, worthwhile to hear what they have to say about advice. I used to always ask people, tell me what's the most important thing. When I was a server in restaurants, I used to always ask people who are successful. Used to say, hey, tell me something about life. Give me a motto of life. Tell me what is important to you and tell me what made you successful. I used to always tell that. I had no problem asking people that question. And I was always amazed.
Shane, yeah, because I know you're very unique in that you're actively seeking for that kind of, but as Deb knows, as a coach, a business coach, because Deb does a lot of leadership coaching and helping businesses. There are folks out there that aren't as self-driven or self-fulfilling as you are, and and it's true. You're right. You have family members and friends who just don't get it. We all do. Anyone who's an entrepreneur in business for themselves will have the naysayers or tell you don't take risks. And you either need to have what you have and be very proactive, or you need to really have a coach. I mean, that's what I've learned all the years. I've had many coaches over the years. I know Deb and I've coached people.
Yeah, coaches are great.
And you have to have a coach, because a coach is they're going to tell you exactly what you need to hear, and they're not going to sugarcoat it in any way if they're a good coach.
As a coach, I listen a lot. Obviously, I've been very quiet here listening to your story because it's a great story, and it's the kind of thing that inspires me. I told Lisa, she and I had the good fortune to get together about a month ago down in Savannah, and one of the things that you said really rang true. I often ask people that I'm coaching, why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this? Because starting your own business, a lot of people think, well, I'm being my own boss. No, it's not. I'm not my own boss. Your customers are your boss.
Yeah.
So let's get that straight right away. If you think it's going to be an easy ride, if you think you can work whenever you feel like it, get over that, because that's not the way it is. And if you're doing something traditional, like you had experiences in insurance industry, you've had experience with real estate and those sorts of things, whatever career you pursue, are you doing it because your family, your mom and dad thought that was a good idea? You're a finance major in college or whatever. And I've often told people, if I did what my parents had wanted me to do, I would have achieved all of their goals by the time I was 20.
Yeah.
So, I'm careening towards 70 years old now. So I can tell you, I've done a lot of things that they probably didn't want me doing, but I didn't listen to everyone that was giving me advice.
I think it's good to hear everyone, because I think that devil's advocate approach to looking at life and business is really, really valuable. I mean, hear what they have to say, because you could pull some gems from what they say and go, oh, you know what? That's right. I'm going to pivot just a little bit over here based on what you said. You're absolutely right. Because I really believe that my curiosity and me asking questions has been part of my success. I always tell everyone, there's some proverbs that you can really use in life, and asking you shall receive, to me, has been one of the most powerful things that I've ever gone through with business. I'm amazed. And I think even Steve Jobs talks about this. He's like, be amazed. Just ask that person for help and see what happens. Ask that person for something and you'll see what happens. Almost every single time you'll get it. So when you start thinking that way and you start asking people, hey, what do you think of this? So one of my things I do is I bring all my employees together when I have a decision-making process. These are like 18-year-olds, 19, 20, 25-year-olds, they have no business, with tea. They're just students who want to work at a fun tea house. But to me, they're my people, they're my demographics. So just asking them the questions and then getting my final product or my final whatever based on those comments and those kind of things that they would like to see or want to kind of be involved with. It brings everyone together, creates good morale, but it also creates a very fine-tuned product for who you're selling to. So it makes sense that our process is growing all the time because every generation, every year of people that come into our tea house, they add a little bit to our place. And if you look in our spaces, I can tell you, oh, that wall and that idea was from one person. Oh, that right there was a couple people came up with this idea. Oh, these teas on tap or this wall of teas. Like I could tell you a story about how they all came because of other people bringing in their ideas and me going, that's good. No, we can't use that. We can't do that. I'll chop that up and creating this mold that works. And if people kind of like get themselves out of their, I think a lot of restaurant people, I always use this analogy as chefs. Chefs try to make something different out of something that's been made before. So they try to make a better grilled cheese sandwich. And then they get into a situation where it doesn't look like a grilled cheese and it doesn't taste like a grilled cheese. And they get so proud of it because they're this culinary master. Well, the problem is no one wants it because they can't identify it and they don't like the flavor. So what does a chef do? Does the chef say, no, I'm right, and I'm going to keep that food item there and write it out? And eventually, I think, go out of business? Or are you going to go, oh, you don't like that? Okay, that's gone. That's scratched.
Yeah.
Here's another version. Do you like this? Nope, that doesn't work. Okay, here's a third version. 10th version. Oh, you like the 10th version? Boom. Then let's stick with this. And only for the time being. Because if people a few years later don't like this 10th version, it's gone.
Right,
Now
so
bring in another one.
I think this is a great segue though, because I am watching time in the interest of our listeners, because I'm totally enthralled, but I don't want to go too far along because then we're going to lose people because they don't. We know the attention span of folks. You got into if you go to your website, by the way, I will put the links to your website in the descriptions and to all your social media. So folks, I'm going to highly recommend. This is the little plug. Go to their website where you can also buy their wonderful teas.
Yes.
So you moved to your location on University Boulevard with the tea house, right? So you got into teas because if you read the website, it came from your trip to Spain, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where I think you added teas first to perfume store, like you had a little corner.
Well, we had one wall.
Selling.
One wall is perfume. So 10 feet wide, you can imagine. You walk in, and one wall is on the wall is like all these bottles of perfume, and the other one was all these like samples.
Interesting. Yeah, because again, to our listeners and people who are in making transitions and pivots, you're taking risks, but you kind of did both at the same time, knowing, as you shared earlier, the perfume was going to end up going.
It was a test. Yeah. I wanted to test it out, but I had that space. So I said, I don't want because I wanted to open up a tea business, but I couldn't just easily open up another space since I have no experience in tea. So I had to test it out.
So if you have no experience in something, how do you learn, right? You ask a lot of people and you test. So tell us about, because I do believe, you're doing some amazing things since the pandemic hit. I know early conversations when I was reaching out to all my family members, and just like me and lots of other business owners, we went to try and get all the loans and the help from our government and the things that were offered. But, as we all know, that's not everything. There's a lot more that has to happen. So tell me us a little bit about where your shop was pre-COVID, and then just what happened and where some of those shifts and pivots have happened. Because now this backstory that you're bringing to us, people are going to get how quickly you move and how you think, and I think it'd be really interesting.
I would say that we were going through a transition period anyways during before COVID. We had a change in kind of the traffic flow of our businesses because of so much competition around us. We have a lot of coffee shops in Tucson, and they were just popping up left and right. And then we started getting more tea business. They were trying to compete with me. And the University of Arizona has a big thing with food. So we were just getting in a situation where we were kind of having less traffic than we were used to. And it wasn't very pleasant experience to go through that downturn. We were still profitable. We were still doing well, but it just was a noticeable difference. And then That process led me to kind of changing things again, looks of the place, the pricing of the place, the staff entirely. We kind of had to make some changes with that because the old staff was kind of getting stagnant. When you get people who are working over 4 years for your place, you start noticing they're going to start getting a little bit complacent. So we had to make a lot of changes, and then we started seeing an uptick in our business, and then boom, COVID happened. So we were like starting to get back on a good wave. And then as soon as that good wave happened, it started kind of looking good, and then went straight down with COVID.
So what did you have to do? I mean, you had to shut down. How long were you shut down before you were able?
So that's kind of the thing that's interesting. I didn't shut down. I never shut down. I never shut down one day. We haven't been closed one day during this entire COVID. We were fortunate to be an essential worker because we sell food, and tea is food. Even though it doesn't seem like it's food, it's you consume it. It's considered food. So we were in that sector, and that was very helpful. And a lot of my restaurant friends, a lot of people in the food industry left, closed down. But I said, I can't. I have too many employees that rely on me. I had too many employees that were not going to qualify for unemployment because they were part-time employees before this. And I just couldn't say, sorry guys, I just couldn't do that. So I needed to support them. And I also needed to support myself, my business, my family. So we basically started, I told everyone, you can leave now and you can go back home, because students basically had an option to go back home and do everything virtual. I said, you can do that, and that's totally fine. And when you come back, we'll have a job waiting for you. When you feel comfortable, I'll be here for you. We'll get you back on the schedule. Anyone who does stay, I will give you as many hours as possible. More people stayed than I anticipated. And all of a sudden I had to make a decision what to do about that. So instead of like saying, hey, the new person, I'm going to have to say goodbye, and I had to give my senior employee more hours, I said, I'm going to just make this fair and equitable. I'm going to cut everyone down, but everyone's going to have shorter shifts, but you'll all have money coming in. So everyone started getting a little bit of money, enough to pay their bills and get through this kind of the harshest times. And then we basically, at that moment, we realized that we had to make some major changes because no one was coming into the shop anymore. So I really hit up, I have when people come into your business, they give you their email or their phone number through some kind of means, usually through like the, when someone does a credit card swipe and you use Square kind of has information. They kind of say, hey, do you want a punch card program? Do you want to get something free after so many visits? For us, that's what it was. And we were getting all these information on people. So I had incredible amount of contacts that I never even tapped into because I didn't want to bother them. Well, now it was a go time. I had to. So I sent out a mass email to all of our people and I said, hey, we're not giving up. We're going to fight through this. We would love for you to buy our tea online. We never really pushed you on this, but now it's time. Can you please help us out? And it was amazing how many of our people who are old customers and whatnot came through and just really helped us out in the beginning of just huge days of sales online. And it was during that time where everyone was kind of getting money from different places who had jobs, and they were just putting it back into the local community. And we got a lot of help that way. And then that just made me go, I need to focus on my online business because this brick and mortar is not going to be enough. And I can't support all these people. So that really became my focus. And from that point, from April 1st on, I was nonstop online, and we've just increased it. We changed our platform. We changed how it looks. We changed our product offerings. We have probably 4 or 5 new products that we introduced that are very unique to tea in general. Like, I don't really see too many businesses have products like we do. And it just became a thing where people, every week we're seeing people buying on a regular basis online, and it allowed us to kind of ride this other wave that allowed us to pay for bills and customers and people. And then while that was happening, because we're open every day, the brick and mortar, people knew we're open and they knew that we were taking care of people the right way. We've always had amazing customer service. We've always had a good product. So the regulars started coming back slowly but surely because they knew they can count on us. And because of that, they just became kind of like a regular situation where we saw people come in every day, and allowed us to kind of make enough money to kind of get through the brick and mortar side of stuff. So having 2 sources of income really allowed us to kind of get through this, because I think if you don't have another source of income, you're going to be in a really tough spot with this COVID time. You need to pivot, and you need to give yourself, if you're a restaurant offering, your services to go, bringing down your price point. Maybe if you're $25, bring it down to 15 or 18 and get less of a product, or keep it the same. Maybe you take less of a profit, but keeping yourself relevant in this time is so important. And people who close down, they made themselves such a harder time to get back up on their feet, because now they have to rehire, they have to get the place going, they have to tell people, hey, we're open again. And now people are stuck on routine, and if you change their routine, you don't know if you're going to get them back.
You know, Shane, some of the things that you're saying are so poignant. I pick up three things: your ability to pivot, your ability to come up with new product ideas, and keep that change. And you have change momentum in your brain. It looks like you're wired for change. It's like,
yeah, you have to
you have to be wired for that. And I have seen, I live in a university town as well, in Carbondale, Illinois, Southern Illinois University. So obviously I've seen a lot of things happen with coffee houses, restaurants, and the ones that are thriving are doing the kinds of things that you're talking about, looking at different product offerings. And Lisa and I talked a couple of months ago on the program about folks exploring ways to do business that they had never had to before, how they can relate to their customers using these kind of tools, using the internet to purchase products. A lot more restaurants are providing the order on Facebook, their Facebook page or whatever, to get their menus out there and to get people ordering. Yeah. Smaller menus sometimes. And they're actually supporting each other. Say, well, we had a special last week, but guess what? Benny's over here has a special on Thursday, so you ought to check out Benny's. So there's a lot of pivoting that goes on. But the other thing, you're talking about asking, not being afraid to ask, and not only asking your customers what do they like, what do they not like, what kind of ideas, but also asking your folks that work for you, are you with me? Yeah. Will you help? Will you step up? Are we going to do this? Being inclusive, like you say, being relevant, that asking, and I'm a big fan of asking questions, but are you going to do that? Which kind of plays into the kind of leadership you need to have to do this sort of thing. You certainly are tenacious. I think I would not like to say stubborn. I'd say tenacious, and certainly inspiring. Looking at the kind of ideas that you have. One of my friends out on the East Coast, Dr. Alice, I used to call her, said that getting through this is more brawn than brains sometimes. You just put in the work. You put in the work, and you help people step up, and then you thank them. And it sounds to me like you come full circle with all of those things.
Yeah, I just think you just need we're really hardcore with making sure when a customer comes in, they get greeted, they get, hey, how you doing? Just a simple hello, people forget about. We always make sure we do that, and we always make sure we talk to them and have a conversation with them. And then after they get their product, I make all my employees ask that customer, hey, try it real quick. Are you happy with that? Because if you're not happy, then we're going to make another one. Or basically, if you're not happy, we're not happy. That's the motto. That's the idea. And you can catch so many things when you ask those questions right at the moment where it's most important. Then later on, when you find out on Yelp that they didn't like it, or they go to tell their friends, hey, that place wasn't that good. Well, maybe they just didn't get the right questions asked to them. Because we ask questions. We go, hey, what are you in the mood for? Are you in the mood for something hot, cold, fruity, minty, earthy, spicy? We have these spiels that everyone has to know and memorize, but make it your own. And that has been my cornerstone for all my businesses, a spiel. Whether it was selling insurance, perfume, real estate, tea, everyone has to have a spiel to at least break the ice and warm people up, and then make them understand that we're here for them. And when you have that, it creates this interpersonal relationship that builds and grows. And when you have that happen over and over with thousands of people, you're going to have a good amount of people who are going to really want to respect and help you, and really keep the business going, because there's not many places that get that anymore. You go to a big corporate place and they kind of don't feel anything. It's just like, hey, here's your drink, get out of here. Here's your drink, get out of here. And there's just nothing there. It's so dry. And we want to keep our place vibrant. And I think that's what people responded to. And that's why we are continuing to grow our business during this downtime.
So in that light, because we're going to have to wrap up shortly, you've got some big stuff happening because I spoke to Nin recently, and then when we
Yeah.
had a short conversation. So tell me I mean, again, here we are in COVID time. You've just given us an amazing story and so inspiring about how you're taking care of your people, how your community is stepping up and you're making it.
Yeah.
And then you've pivoted with increasing your online, but now where are we going now? Because this is exciting.
Yeah, so we're always trying to find other areas that have that kind of traffic, foot traffic, and young foot traffic, like college crowds. So we're always looking for college towns. So we are looking to, well, first we're expanding our university location to a space next to us that went out of business pre-COVID. So it wasn't COVID related, but they went out of business. So we're taking out that space and we're going to build on it. So we're going to have a wine tea bar that we're developing. So instead of it just being, we keep focusing on, we're a drink house. We're not just a tea house. Like a tea house is kind of, yeah, we start off that way, but we're really tea, forward, but we're also a drink place. So you go there and pretty soon in January, we're going to have twice as big of space, and we're going to have now wine, tea, beer, all that stuff for people to kind of find a place to, feel comfortable with. And it's going to be just all over the place with beverages. But wine and beer is going to be the new additions to our repertoire. And we're going to keep it really low key, where it's not going to be pretentious at all. We're not going to have white tablecloths. We're not going to have a server going, oh, we're not going to have a sommelier. We're going to keep it nice and easy and chill, where it's not so crazy price point, and let people come in and enjoy the space. And just lots of green, lots of environment. We have a lot of cool things we're going to be doing. That's that. And then we're opening up, hopefully, if everything works out, we're opening up in downtown Phoenix in March, April time. And we're going to open up in a place that's right there next to the campus in the downtown Phoenix area. Right in the heart of downtown Phoenix, I should say.
I think I'm going to need to go to Tucson and get out west here soon.
I know, you need to come on over. It's great.
That's very exciting. I mean, so, who hears of anyone in COVID? Now, there are businesses that are doing extremely well. We know this. I mean, it's not that everyone's suffering, but there's definitely a lot of people and a lot of businesses are hurting. But here you are in a business that typically people are thinking are struggling. And it's not that it's easy, because as you mentioned.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
And we're still a struggle. I'll definitely say it's still a struggle. Every day is a new challenge. But yes, we are maintaining. I think that's what people are doing right now. They're maintaining, and inch by inch they're growing.
You're maintaining, but you're also looking, you've got your sights on what's coming next, because we will cut past this. This will be behind in our past. And you're already saying, we're a beverage place. We're a place where you come enjoy something to drink. And we already know beer and wine are something that people want, and it's something we can do. So if we can do it now, the opportunity's here, and you can swing it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Whereas some folks, even if the opportunity shows up, they don't see that because they're in retraction mode or constricting, and you're in expansion. Your brain is in expansion, I think, at all times. And when you think in that way, opportunity shows up, and then you take it, which is what I'm hearing.
I feel like that's the only thing we've ever really known, because my landlord was laughing, because she was like, I'm going to give you this allow you to open up the space next to you and have a bigger lease, a bigger amount of rent every month, because every single time you've come in here, you've always come in during like a downturn. So when I opened up the perfume thing, it was during the housing crisis. And when I did the tea thing in the beginning, it was during a financial crisis. And then now I'm doing it during a COVID crisis. So she's like, I feel comfortable, because every single time there's a downturn, you try to do more, and most people are trying to pull back. So I was like, yeah, I guess that's true. I guess I find comfort in these times to kind of like make myself think differently and hopefully come up with ideas that make sense.
Entrepreneurship goes hand in hand with leadership, and courage is what I see from you. Courage and a little bit of blind faith. Yeah. That I know I can do this. And of course, as years go by, you're going to feel that even more. I guarantee it. You will. You'll feel kind of frighteningly brave as you go forward, because of the things you've done and survived and thrived. I know we need to wrap up, Lisa, so I want to say thank you to our listeners, and Shane, especially thank you to you for investing your time with us today. And I hope that Shane's story inspires some of you out there. I know he certainly inspires me, and I just love to be surprised and intrigued. And you've captivated me this past 30 minutes or so. You can find Scented Leaf Tea House and Lounge at thescentedleaf.com and on Facebook and Instagram. So we'll put those links in the description, like Lisa said. Solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business owners in our listening audience, you have a story, some technique, something you'd like to tell us about, just like Shane has shared with us today, some strategy that you have employed during this time or any other time for your success. Please share it with us. We'd love to hear your story, your interests, suggestions. Send them to email at businessdig@gmail.com. We'd love to hear all of your stories and insights, and you can also comment on our Facebook business page. We'll be having this video up soon, and you can also reach out to us in the search bar. Just type in Business Dig. So we can't wait to hear from you. Lisa, any closing remarks? And Shane?
Yeah, well, Shane, I'm going to let you, I'll close out, but Shane, anything that you want to share last minute, as a closing idea that would help our listeners?
You know, I always tell people one thing that really helps is to, I read The Alchemist. I always push that. I tell people about this all the time because in this whole story, I didn't get into some of the stuff that happened that led me to the tea world. So the book, The Alchemist, is a short story. It's easy to read, and it'll make you think different, and it'll make you think about ask and you shall receive. And when you have that mentality of you tell the universe what you want and you see what happens afterwards, is pretty phenomenal. And I think people should really think about asking what they want and being sincere about it and being ready to answer those calls.
Fantastic.
Beautiful way to wrap it up, I think.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Deb. Good to see you. Thank you, Shane. It was a pleasure to have you on our podcast. And thank you to our listeners. And we're going to call it a podcast. Our recording's done. Thanks all for being here.
Join us next time for Business Dig with Lisa Kanda and Deb Fry. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.